When OP falls out of love with her husband and in love with one of his close friends, she doesn't know how to handle things. Is it too late for her marriage? To find out how this story ends, get yourself a coffee and grab a bowl of popcorn so we can get into it.
Me and my husband are in our early 30s and have a 4-year-old daughter together. Our love story starts off like any other. It was great in the beginning and we only had small arguments. However, since having our daughter, he's become way more distant. He'd rather spend his time playing video games than spend time with me or our daughter. And if he's not playing games himself, he's watching others do so on YouTube. We have a tight friend group that I married into, so to speak. And in total, there's 14 of us. While everyone in the group went to high school or elementary together, I didn't. So I'm the outsider of the group. But around 8 months ago, a couple of friends from the group bought a house very close to ours. So naturally, our daughters got closer and wanted to do a lot of things together. Their daughter joined the same dance class as ours, which is at 8 in the morning on Saturdays. Her dad, Steven, would take her, and we've always got on well. I met him 9 years ago when me and my husband first got together, and he's been great. During the first week of class, we sat together for an hour in the waiting room. The waiting room is separate from the hall, so we couldn't actually see the children, so people normally sat in an awkward silence. Steven's quite a funny guy, though, so time flew with his company. The following week, he attended again and said that he'd rather go for coffee than sit in the awkward room, and let me know that I was welcome to join. I agreed, and we got in his car. We ended up getting stuck in traffic, so by the time we got there wasn't much time left to sit in and have a coffee, so we got one to go and just sat in his car for 20 minutes. The week after that, he said that he's doing the same thing, and again, let me know that I was welcome to join. We go to the coffee shop, but this time I got very paranoid about it. But I don't know why. I asked if we could just get a coffee from the drive-thru and sit in the car again, and he was fine with it. We ended up passing his phone between us, picking terrible songs from our childhood for an hour, and it was actually quite fun. Every week for the past 8 months has been like this, and I haven't told my husband about any of it. I lost my dad a few months ago, and my husband just didn't care. He didn't show me any compassion or give me any comfort. I got nothing from him. I couldn't believe the man I married was acting this way when I needed him most. I couldn't even cry around him without him huffing and puffing, so Steven became my outlet during this time, and I've cried in his arms several times. He asked how things were at home, and I was honest with him. I told him that I've never felt more alone than when I'm at home with my husband, and that he's been amazing putting up with me. He suggested that we get a marriage counselor, which I brought up to my husband, but he wasn't having any of it. Stevens told me that he feels differently about my husband because he had no idea that he was like this, and has actually made a few comments towards him about it. But as usual, it goes way above my husband's head. I've lost feelings for my husband, and probably did a long time ago. I've fallen for Steven hard, and I feel wrecked with guilt. I'm confused, hurt, and sad, but all of that goes away when I see his face. I want to add here that in no way has Steven ever been inappropriate towards me, and he's never acted creepy or said anything suggestible. I've never caught him staring, and nothing at all that would suggest he has alternate motives. But I'm ashamed to admit, the only reason we haven't kissed or had sex is because he's never made a move. I'm scared because the way he makes me feel would make it next to impossible for me to pull away or say no. There have been a few times after seeing him that I got home and wished that he made a move on me, which makes me a horrible person. This all sounds crazy for someone I spend an hour with on Saturday mornings, but it's spilled over to the other clubs that our kids go to. I see him at nursery, and I started matching our dog walking time so we can see each other. If there's an excuse to see him, I'll find it and use it. I know this is bad, and I need to do something about it, but when it comes to it, I never do anything because I don't want to. I'm battling with my thoughts, telling myself that I need to stop and sort out my marriage, whether that be working on it or separating. I want to tell Steven how I feel, but I don't want to look like a fool, and I don't want to scare him. What if it blows up his marriage? What if our kids can't see each other? What happens to the friend group if this gets out? It's a real mess. I don't know what to do because we will still see each other a lot. My husband would never take our daughter to these classes, so I'm stuck with that. And I always do the nursery runs, so how can I get over him if he's everywhere?
Sounds to me like OP's marriage is falling apart, and rather than fix it, she's turned her attention towards another man. While she's aware of the potential consequences, she can't seem to pull herself out of this hole she's dug. While her partner could be, and should be doing more, and not playing video games all day, OP needs to communicate her feelings to him, and then come to a decision about what's best for their future. Let's see if anyone in the comments has anything valuable to say.
B. Maka says, "Leave Steven alone. He hasn't shown you any signs that he's interested in anything but in his own marriage. Stop walking your dog on the basis that you'll bump into him, and stop manufacturing ways to see him. Stop using him as an emotional crutch because you aren't happy in your own marriage. I repeat, leave Steven alone. Your husband sucks for not comforting you when your father died, but you need to have an honest conversation about how he's making you feel and how lonely he's making his own wife. If you both mutually want to work on it, get therapy and be honest with each other. If you've really fallen out of love, don't feel guilty for leaving if you've come to the end of the road. You deserve happiness, but not at the expense of Steven and his wife who have nothing to do with the challenges in your own marriage." Eat the Banker says, "Even if your husband won't go, you need to get therapy. You're projecting your feelings onto a guy who's just being friendly to you. And I have a feeling that if you do make a romantic move, he won't accept it. And you'll feel even worse when he realizes that you're crushing on him. Not one word about his wife if you haven't noticed. He has a wife and family and is just a nice guy, not your knight in shining armor coming to rescue you."
Before we call it quits for the day, let's check out an update from OP.
Seeing as my last post got an overwhelming amount of attention, I thought I would post an update. I want to thank everyone who messaged me privately, especially those who are in a similar situation as me. It's crazy to me how many people seem to be married to the same person, so it's given me the strength I needed to make this decision. For those who left not-so-nice messages, please think about how your words are going to impact someone, and how vulnerable a state they could be in when sharing their story. It's very easy to sit behind a computer or phone and type up the horrible things you have. I mean, I've had people sending me messages saying that I should delete myself and that my babies should be taken from me, and that I'm a whore who shouldn't be allowed out in public. To be honest, though, you look like the broken ones leaving messages like that, and to have the brass neck to tell me that I'm a bad person. I don't deserve those messages. No one does. I'll reiterate here for the people who didn't seem to understand. I've not slept with Steven, and I've made no moves to do so. I haven't even kissed him. I said if he made a move with my frame of mind, I think I would be in trouble. And I'm certain there will be other women who hear my story and know what I'm talking about regarding this. Anyway, yesterday I kept the same routine. I took the dogs out for a walk at night and then went home and got ready for bed. Just before I got into bed, though, Steven messaged me, asking if I used Reddit. Immediately my heart sank, but I told him that I did use the website. I then asked him why he wanted to know, after which he sent me a link to my story, asking if I was the one who posted it. I admitted that it was me and waited for the ground to swallow me up, but he replied with, "Wow," and a few minutes later, texted me saying, "Don't panic," and that he won't tell my husband, but feels a certain way about hiding this from his partner, which I understand. I took the night to myself so I could think things over, and let him know that we'd talk about it tomorrow, which was today. He said that we'd be able to sort everything out, but we needed to put some boundaries in place. I was a wreck last night, but after a few hours I calmed down. I didn't get much sleep, and I read through all the messages I got on my previous post. As I was reading them and looking at my husband passed out on the other side of the bed, I was seething with anger, but I don't know why. In any case, though, that anger spilled over to this morning, and I'm not even going to talk it through with him. We're done, and I'm organizing things while he's out so I can leave quickly if I need to. I'm sorting a place to stay and contacting lawyers, and I can feel the relief coming, and nothing he says will stop me from leaving. If he asks, I'll tell him that there was someone who made me realize that the life I have with him isn't the life I want, but I won't tell him who. He's been given countless chances to step up to the plate, and every time, he fails me and our daughter for his own selfishness. He'll never change. I haven't spoken to Stephen yet, and I don't really know how that side of things will pan out, but I hope we can remain friends. But I totally understand if he wants to take a step back. I can't hold anything against him, and despite what people were telling me in my last post, I don't want to interfere in anyone's marriage.
While OP said that she wasn't out to interfere with anyone else's marriage, her actions said otherwise. Had Stephen made a move on her during one of their coffee dates, she would have played a role in potentially destroying his relationship. But there was a final update to this story, so let's hear how things turned out for OP and her partner.
Here we are, a week later, and I feel much better. It feels like such a relief. My husband's been trying to contact me non-stop, despite being told that the only communication between us will be about our daughter because I'm not interested in hearing his bullshit anymore. All of this has shown me who he really is and has only solidified my choice. He's been struggling, and during my second night out of the house, I got a text from Stephen, letting me know that my husband was currently at their house in tears. Gosh, it was so awkward. He's been leaning on them for support, and from what I hear, he'll do anything he can to get me back, which is odd considering the multiple messages he's sent me, telling me that me and our daughter ruined his life and that he never wanted any of us. I have lots of support from friends and family, much to his chagrin. Me and Stephen have limited contact, but he still checks in on me to make sure I'm all right, and to see if me and my daughter need anything. We spoke, and we both agree that I'm experiencing limerence. I reiterated that I'm not out to sleep with him, and that I've been in a very fragile state of mind for God knows how long. But it doesn't make it any easier when it comes to his wife. I feel horrible and fully accept it if neither of them wants to remain friends. She doesn't know about any of this yet, but she will learn about everything once things have settled a bit. I already no longer feel like I'm in love with him. It's more like he showed me the light and made me realize that the way we were living wasn't normal or healthy, and that I deserve better. My husband has his own issues, like we all do, but they won't fix themselves, and I can't waste my life away in the hopes that they do. I do hope he gets himself whatever help he needs, and if not for him, for our daughter, because she doesn't deserve to come second to video games and YouTube. Again, I want to thank everyone who chimed in with advice and the ones who sent me their own similar stories. If anyone else is in a similar situation, I hope they can take something away from my story. Don't settle and waste as many years as I did.
While I'm glad that OP decided to call it quits on the relationship before creating a big mess for everyone, the opinions shared by other Redditors seems to be quite divided, so let's check them out.
Artistic Asparagus says, "It's great that you figured out your own marriage, but Steven's putting his own marriage second to your feelings by continuing to emotionally support you and not telling his wife about your feelings. She could see it as a huge betrayal by both of you. It's his responsibility to tell her now. And the fact that he's texting you to tell you that your husband is there when he knows you have feelings for him seems super messy on his part. And to be honest, going by your original post and comments, you didn't seem to feel horrible at all, and wouldn't even acknowledge questions or comments about his wife." Consistent Ad says, "I'm happy that you made the best decision for yourself." Great Gower replies with, "There's a wife in the equation too, and she has no clue." Consistent Ad responds by saying, "I believe that OP stated that Stephen will be speaking to his wife about OP and everything. She understands that she isn't really in love with Stephen, but realizes that she deserves more out of her marriage, which is why she chose her and her daughter and decided to leave." Great Gower replies again saying, "She indulged in an emotional affair despite knowing that Stephen's married." Consistent Ad then says, "She did, which is why that friendship is most likely over, and he said that he'd be telling his wife." I'm not saying Stephen is innocent because whether he admits it or not, he was an active party of this emotional affair. And he was wrong too. If you're reading this, Stephen, you're a cheater too. Since he found the first post, there's no doubt in my mind that he's reading this too. When you tell your wife, make sure you tell her the part you played as well. Personally, I think it's bullshit that he hasn't told her yet. If I was his wife, once I found out, I would feel like he put OP's feelings above mine. Stephen actively kept meeting her for coffee and hanging out with her and her child steadily. There's no way that he couldn't tell OP had feelings for him, but he kept meeting her, so when he tells his wife, even if he doesn't open up about the part he played, I hope she's smart enough to realize that. As for OP, I'm sorry it took all this for her to realize that she needed and deserved more out of her marriage. However, she made the best decision for her and her family to move on. Stephen better hope that his wife forgives him because he isn't innocent either. If he was, he wouldn't have been able to figure out he was OP's interest in the first post so easily. Stephen was most likely flattered and enjoyed her interest, which is why he kept asking her about stuff and didn't pull away. If I'm not mistaken, in the original post, after OP got dragged and got advice from others, she started pulling away to see if her feelings were true, so it wasn't Stephen who pulled away from the situation. It was her. I hope his wife calls him out on that also. Sorry for my rant, I agree with you. I didn't forget about his wife, I just know Stephen is supposed to be telling.
When or if Stephen does tell his wife about what happened throughout this whole drama, things can get messy very fast. My advice to anyone who's in a long-term relationship: your partner's feelings should come before anyone else's, so you should always be mindful about how things might come across, even if you're not actually cheating on your partner. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Coffee and Popcorn, and I can't wait to see you on the next one.